Well, it's day 4 of MSI group stage. I'm joined right now by Clement Chu from I don't know, what do you even call you now? Where are you from?
Uh, I'm American.
Okay, from America. So we're going to talk all about Team Liquid. Now, of course, this coverage brought to you by Alienware. No, but you work now with the LPL.
Yes, I work in Shanghai. Yeah.
And for those unfamiliar with your long pedigree in the League of Legends scene, do you want to break it down?
Yeah, sure. So my first job I interviewed at Riot was actually for a stats job, but Spellsy took that away from me. He was actually just better, more qualified, so that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, Spellsy sucks, so it's fine. Yeah.
I guess you know him, so that's fine. And then 2015, I joined. I actually did a lot of shit before that. Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, I was a writer. I worked in NA. I worked in EU. I worked in Brazil, and then in 2015. I joined LMS as a caster, and it was kind of an interesting experience. They mainly wanted me for my content ability because I had some stats stuff, and I went there. I built their database, and I became their caster because they needed casters. And I also became the producer of the LMS. And in 2018, I made the transition over to LPL, and now I'm a caster for the LPL, and I volunteered for doing a lot of translations here because I feel like I want people to know these players on a personal level, and it's just so much of a difference when you have someone that can transition smoothly, and I just feel like it's very helpful, so I wanted to be here.
Well, we should say we were waiting for an Ing interview, and then I think we took too long to get him here or something. I don't know what happened, but we don't have him. So I'm going to interview you about IG because I haven't had a chance to really talk to too many people from IG. So now they're 8-0. Was this expected?
Oof, not really. I have to be honest. I felt like IG was one of those teams that they can control really hard. Like they're when they're happy, they're super happy. Especially this year, their record actually dropped quite a bit. They had 4 losses, while in the previous split they went on 18 consecutive victories in both times. So we saw this as a bit of a weaker IG when compared to their previous form, but I guess weaker IG is still more than enough to handle for the entire tournament.
Yeah. Well, and so it seems like that's the case. Are you worried at all for IG? Because it does feel like they troll games where they feel like they can win it. And we've seen some really interesting games from them. Do you worry that could bite them?
So I always read IG as that their trolley parts and their strength are kind of like a yin and yang. They're actually connected. So what they do is they put themselves in a hyperbolic chamber in most of their games, and they look for the maximum amount of contact with the enemy teams. Like if you look at the meta right now, most of the games are actually decided on contact. And you have to team fight, you have to skirmish to win that. And what they're doing is that they're basically playing twice the amount of team fights and skirmishes that SKT would play when they were in LCK. So when you play that amount of skirmishes, you're going to lose some of them. And I want to throw out a stat out there to illustrate this. Invictus Gaming's team fight win rate pre-20 minutes in the LPL is actually the second worst. They're actually incredibly bad at team fight selection. Yeah. But they still win anyway because they'll lose a lot of mid-game team fights and they'll just close out the game somehow in 29 minutes because they're so dominant as players. So I really think I'm not worried about Invictus Gaming, but for me, it's about flipping the switch where they can say, okay, we've had all of this practice all along. Our plan has worked. This time we're going to throw the yin away, and it's only going to be the yang.
Yeah. If you were to, I mean, I know we only have one more day left, but if you were to pick any team from this, let's say they were to play best of fives against every team at this tournament. If you were to pick one that you think could upset them in that, which team do you think might be able to expose them that way?
G2 100%. So I've been doing a lot of interviews for the players for Invictus Gaming, and there was a Korean interview. I think it's already out by now, but basically Jackie Love was like, I think it's unrealistic to expect SKT to win it all. He was very matter of the fact in that sense, but the rest of the members were quite worried about G2. They did see G2 as a worthy opponent, and they also saw G2 as very difficult to read. Like they were really sure what to expect from them.
Sorry, were you saying Jackie Love? You mentioned Jackie Love said he didn't think SKT was realistic. Did you mean G2?
He meant SKT wasn't realistic, so I just want to say
okay.
out of SKT and G2, like they're definitely looking at G2 as more of a threat.
So Jackie Love said SKT, but the rest of the players were like on board with the idea that G2 could be.
Yeah, they were more worried about like G2 upsetting them because they're much harder to pin down, and in China they call them the artistic EU team. They say it's the Renaissance because they play with so much flair, and what they do is just poetic in a way that it's almost art.
Are these Chinese fans that are saying that? Who's saying that?
These are fans on Weibo.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just the Chinese community.
They say they're like the Renaissance team.
Yeah.
Very fascinating. I really like the description for G2. Other than that, what have you thought of MSI?
Oh, I felt like it was a really good event so far. Like I've only been here for Hanoi, and I've been around the city enjoying the street food, whatever. And I don't know, like if you've been to enough international tournaments, I guess you feel this. Like it becomes kind of a blur. I realize they're very, very long days at the end of it. Like I do like two-hour translations, but all of it's like in one block. So you just kind of like do it and you go home and sleep, and that's
No, 100%. I mean, Brodin and I came into town early in part because I think back to Worlds, and we were there for groups and quarterfinals, and Busan, I just feels like a dream, like one long dream where it's just like I can't even really separate those days apart. But what have you thought, because I know this is the first big international event in Vietnam, any thoughts on like the fans or the experience here?
Yeah, Vietnam has always been a region personally on my radar. Like I actually fully support them to like taking a seat away from LMS. I think it would make international tournaments a lot more interesting. And we've always heard in the stadium about how loud the crowd was. They're very passionate about this game. They actually have one of the largest viewing bases in the world. So people might think like, they might think of the major regions, but Vietnam is actually much bigger than NA. I think it's bigger than EU, and it's probably only underneath China in terms of the amount of people that are playing it. Like people think of Vietnam as a small country. It's the 15th most populous country in the world. Like there are a lot of people here who are willing to play this game. And I just want to share some funny stories because me and Skara, we were casting for Hyperplay, and a Vietnamese team was like they didn't win in the end, but everyone thought that they would. And we were looking at the AD carries right there, and this was like the 12th best team in Vietnam, and Scars was like, that AD carry would be like the second best AD carry if he went to NA. Sure. And I think there's a lot of untapped talent here. Like I'm sure you interviewed the country manager as well, and he was very intent on selling more players for me, amount of players. And honestly, the salary here are so low compared to what they pay in the West. Like 300,000 was the average. I think honestly you could get like 10 teams of Vietnamese players here. Okay. So I think it's a region that we're going to see a lot more players come out of. There's only Levi and SOFM so far, but I think there's going to be a lot more, and I think it's going to be a great investment. Yeah.
Well, looking forward to seeing how things go. That's a really interesting stat. I hadn't really thought about the fact that there's probably a lot of undervalued players here, at least on the international stage. Anything that you want to say to any of the fans out there that are watching MSI?
Just want to say thank you all for cheering for Invictus Gaming, and I want to say there's more crazy teams in the LPL, so if you want to catch that, we still have JD Gaming. All of our teams are super stacked from 1st to 8th place. We have TOP, who's like a star player Knight, Korean Challenger 1. So if you want to see more of this crazy style and you want to see the future of League of Legends in terms of competitive results, you have to stay tuned for the LPL.
Looking forward to seeing how things go for IG the rest of this tournament. Thanks so much for subbing in for Ning, who hopefully I'll get in the future. Thank you, though, Clement. Always a pleasure to talk to you. For everyone else, you can check out the rest of my coverage of all things esports right here on my YouTube channel.
Thanks so much for watching that interview. Really want to thank you for doing that, and thank you to Alienware for sponsoring this trip. If you've been paying attention to the interviews, we've been traveling along Halong Bay. This is but one of many caves that we have entered on our journeys to try to find the secret to North America international success. It's not here, unfortunately, but hopefully we'll find it soon. Thanks so much.